Hello, everyone.
Hi, Kay.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sweetie?
Hanging in there.
Well, good, good, good. That's the best we can do, right, bud?
That's right.
Okay,
Hey,
put a sign in your yard today.
yeah, I was out with Pelichek and we came home and there was a new sign on my lawn.
Yeah, I knocked on the door, but.
I figured it was you.
How's Murphy?
Pardon me?
How's Murphy?
Oh, Murphy's kicking like a chicken. Getting old just like me, but hanging in there. Hey, Neil.
Hello.
Oh. Is Plant Moran going to work, or is it?
We are not. I do the work, yes, but.
Oh, yeah.
She's here. We are still predominantly remote. We have 2 offices that are on pilot.
Hi, Plant Moran.
It's like she's in that thing. What's this?
In the hallway,
Oh,
and Mr. Markey won't be here.
I just counted the couch.
His Walsh is inside there.
It's a weird setting.
It is.
Just what you guys did the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we were gonna do it.
It's too hard to hear underneath that soffit.
All right, well, I'll call this meeting to order. I'll do the attendance. Green present, Mr. Schulte,
Schulte present.
Ms. Walsh,
Welsh present.
Mr. Zanetti,
Zanetti present.
Mr. Barkey. Barkey absent for notice, Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick present.
Mr. Hiller.
Hiller present.
Establish a quorum. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States
of
of
America
America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
God, indivisible, with liberty for all.
Keep up the pace there, okay?
I'm sorry?
Item 3 is agenda approval this now.
I have no changes.
So moved.
Motion by Zanetti,
Support.
support by Mr. Schulte. Mr. Zanetti,
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Schulte, yes.
Ms. Walsh,
Welsh, yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Mr. Hiller.
Hiller, yes.
Green, yes, the motion carries. Item 4 is the minutes from September 28th. Everybody's got a copy to review?
Motion to accept the minutes from September 28th. Fitzpatrick.
Support by Hiller. Motion by Fitzpatrick, support by Hiller. Any questions? Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Mr. Hiller,
Hiller, yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Schulte abstains. I wasn't at the meeting.
Schulte abstains. Ms. Walsh,
Welsh, yes.
Mr. Zanetti.
Zanetti, yes.
Green, yes, the motion carries. Item 6 is payment of the bills.
Yes, tonight I'd like to pay the bills. This is Walsh. Pay the bills in the following manner. General fund, $934,207.77. Center programs, $4,600.64. Food Service Fund, $73,213.94. Child Care Fund, $722.45. 2018 bond, $2,200. And bond 2020 Series 1, $28,803.
Motion by Walsh,
Support?
support by Mr. Schulte. Any questions?
I have one, Hiller.
Mr. Hill?
On page, what was it, 11 of general fund, there was a payment for CDW government, the ThinkPads. Was that for the new laptops that were purchased for virtual learning? That's the substantial payment.
Page 11?
I don't know, looking at the right page, no, I'm sorry, page 16, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong thing. Yeah, 16, sorry. My mistake.
Yes,
Okay,
that is one of several payments for the student devices that we've been purchasing.
okay. Are we getting is any of that coming from CARES money too, or?
Yeah, we're trying to shift as much of it as we can to either CARES funding or CRF funding. We're moving to whatever grant makes the most sense when those come in, so. That is one order, and there will be several more payments that will come through in coming board meetings that are large of that quantity as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Ms. Walsh,
Walsh, yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Schulte, yes.
Mr. Zanetti,
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Mr. Hiller.
Hiller, yes.
Green, yes, the motion carries. I did skip number 5, correspondence. There are none, thank you. Item 7 is old business, there is none. Item 8 is new business. Are student reps with us?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, ladies.
How are you guys?
Hello.
You
All right.
got the floor.
All right, perfect. So tonight, the boys varsity soccer team will take on Marysville to win the district conference.
Towers Marching Band will be performing in the virtual MSBOA Festival this Friday at 5:30.
And then Derek, a senior at Tower, is in the running for Football Player of the Week. So please go vote on the Detroit Free Press. So hopefully he will win.
And although things are a little different at school this year, it wouldn't be a proper school year if Student Council didn't host a Spirit Week. So starting next week, Monday, it will be Pajama Day, Tuesday, Tie-Dye, Wednesday, Hawaiian, Thursday, Class Colors, and Friday, Titan Pride. Ms. Gaddis will also be selling Spirit packages that cost $10 that include a tutu, beads, face jewels, and Tower tattoos.
Last week, the students got the chance to vote for Homecoming Court and Sweetheart and Sour Heart. And last Friday, they announced the court. I only know the senior Homecoming Court, and the students on the court are Drew Wilson, Chandler Barnes, Derek Estrakis, Jack Delisle, Issa Corey, and the girls are Jasmine Mua, Vera Dito, Victoria Rivers, Megan Finazzo, and Kara Sanders.
Says it. I can tell you're smiling, Kara.
I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's all we have for you guys today.
Well, thank you, ladies. It's always refreshing to hear from you guys.
Thank you.
Is that Derek Estrakis who we should go vote for?
Yes.
Yes. We got him in the lead first hour today. We worked hard on that. We voted so many times.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Job
you.
well done as always. The next item is student achievement, Ms. Denhoff.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Kara Beal for your student achievement report this evening.
Hey, everyone. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Kara.
Hopefully you guys should be able to see I changed the screen. Just wanted to give you a brief update about testing. I'm really pleased at how staff have helped out, as well as parents. We've tried to respond by providing some options to parents in regards to some of the necessary testing. As you guys may or may not know, the Read by Grade 3 legislation requires us to test all of our K-3 students on a screener in the first 30 days of school, which was last Friday. And we also have to test all of our K-8 students based on the Return to Learn plan on reading and math. So the guidance that we were given is to use one of the 4 recommended or approved tests, one of them being NWEA. And since we have used that test for a number of years now, it seemed the easiest transition. So using that as our screener for the Read by Grade 3 law and the benchmark assessment needed for the Return to Learn plan, we kicked that off at the end of September by providing some remote learning opportunities for our remote students to come in and test at our elementary level. So we had small groups of students at each of our 3 elementaries able to sign up through Sign Up Genius, and parents could elect any of the 3 elementaries. It wasn't dependent on where their child was enrolled. And those sessions ran kind of on a rolling start. So Westwood kicked it off on September 21st and went through September 25th. And those sessions at each of the buildings ran from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then Briarwood started on Tuesday and then went to through the following Monday, and Pinewood started on Wednesday and went through the following Tuesday. And that captured a lot of our remote students. I was very pleased, and the parents were great about coming in and helping us out with that testing. We did have some parents still that for various reasons couldn't or elected not to come in. And so we are hosting remote testing for the first time. So we started actually week with that and very pleased with how that's going. The rest of the NWA testing for the face-to-face kids, with the exception of the K through 3 reading assessment, will be concluding at the end of October. So we've already well underway with diagnostic testing as well for all of our K-5 students. In the past, you guys may have remember that we've offered the DRA. And this year, while some teachers elected, particularly the face-to-face teachers, to go with the DRA, we are also offering the option of the literacy footprints assessment, which has a virtual component. So it allows easier access for all of our kids, whether they're virtual or in person. And again, the testing priority in the calendar was given to our K-3 students in the area of reading so that we could get that screener underway, we could get the diagnostic information, and we could begin literacy supports for those kiddos. Based on the positive response from families of the virtual students, we're continuing to offer some on-site for those families, as well as the remote option. Again, those were 90-minute testing sessions. They ran from 9 a.m. to 5:30. So, we had pretty equal distribution all day long through those signups, and parents seemed to enjoy having a later option as well for those families that may work and they could come in. So that was all in large part, again, to our staff who were willing to proctor both within the school day and then after the contractual day, and then to our parents who were willing to bring their kids in and those are the same parents that elected to do the whole semester online. So for them to trust us and have those kiddos come in and test, I was very pleased. Today I took a look at where we were at in terms of testing, and this is just a snapshot. So if you're looking at the chart, it's listed by building. So the columns, you'll see R and an M. The R denotes reading, the reading assessment for NWA, and M is for math. And those are the percentages of students that we've managed to capture. You'll notice it's not perfect. I'm actually really proud of those percentages. I think given everything that's been going on and having to also host the remote and kind of adapt, I think staff is doing a really great job. Those that are in the low 30s or, obviously have a large way to go in terms of completion, keep in mind that they have until the end of October to do this. So each level or each building is kind of approaching it differently. Pinewood in particular is a little behind in some areas in that they just had some other building needs that kind of took some attention. And so it kind of challenged their ability to get some testing in for a couple days. So that was happening. At the middle school, they were great. They decided to not necessarily start with face-to-face testing. They wanted to start with remote testing, and they've been very brave. Actually, today was their first day, and when I checked in with Michelle Volker over there, they were doing a great job. They said that they had little technical difficulties, and they were kind of adjusting and thinking on how they could provide greater support to parents. Most of it just dealt with readiness. There's a online readiness, assessment that parents can take just to make sure their device is capable, and just making sure we're sharing that information with parents so that prior to the testing session, they're all set up and ready to go. So I'm really optimistic things are going to go well over there. Traditionally in the past, we've done reading, math, and science. This year, just due to all the testing that's been going on and just the format, we have elected to just go with reading and math, and that keeps us also in compliance with the return to learn plan. Again, parent support has been provided. They have a small team over there that's just been phenomenal about making sure parents have the information. Teachers have been our primary source of getting the calendar and information and awareness items out to parents. They're beginning their in-person testing next week, and that'll run through the end of the month. Their goal or their aim is for 2 days per grade level of testing, 1 grade level at a time. And they're really conscientious about no back-to-back testing. So students wouldn't have, an extended period or a long period of time where they're just constantly testing. So that's how they're building their testing schedule. And I also wanted to note the coordination with the special education department has been great. With this remote learning, it kind of threw everything and everyone for a loop because those kids' accommodations still need to be met even in a remote environment. So in many of those cases, providers are meeting with those kids one-on-one, and just their communication is much appreciated with me as we were building sessions and making sure that some of those accommodations could be set up within the system well in advance. So I just really appreciate the special ed department and their support and communication. And then finally, parents will receive their child's NWA results within 30 days of the conclusion of the testing window. And so that will likely come either in an emailed letter home or a mailed letter home. At the high school, they're busy planning and adjusting to the fall testing that we're not typically used to all of these tests being offered in the fall. So the first test that's coming up here is the 11th grade PSAT NMSQT, and that's going to be happening on the 14th. And then we also have the 12th graders who did not have an opportunity in the spring to take the SAT with essay. They will have that opportunity later this month, as well as the 9th and 10th graders to take the PSAT. So a lot of testing going on, but really proud of the staff and the administrators for just thinking creatively on how they could get it all done. So just a little update on where we're at with testing.
Hey, thank you, Kara. Are there any questions? That's a report.
Just one question, Mr. Green. This is
Mr. Sinetti.
On the test results, Kara, you said about 30 days after the tests conclude, which is like end of November roughly. Is that for all buildings?
Yeah, and quite honestly, we hope to have the results to parents sooner than that. But yeah, that's the window where once we collect all the results and we're able to get them out to parents in a uniform fashion.
Okay, thank you.
That would be for the K-8 NWA, the SAT would be different.
Correct, yes, but yeah, K through 8.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hope all is well. The next item is our audit presentation. Ms. Dunn.
Yes, we are very pleased to have with us this evening Jennifer Chambers from Plant Moran, who is here to go over the 1920 audit results with you. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Back.
And I do want to acknowledge that Holly Stefanski is participating remotely. just given some of the restrictions that our firm has. I'm able to present here tonight, and she's definitely here in spirit and listening. And she was able to participate in the finance committee this way as well. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today to present to you the results of the June 30, 2020 audit. This audit was a little bit different. We did perform the audit procedures remotely in accordance with what has been transpiring in our environment. But even with those restrictions and changes, the staff were very receptive to working with us in that type of manner, and we felt that the audit went very successful. So we'll go through what your deliverables are, and then we'll go through the graph presentation so that you can have an idea of some of the financial highlights for the past year. So in your packet, you should have received 3 items: the basic financial statements, which is labeled financial report. The second is the federal programs audit. And then the final item is the letter entitled Report to the Board of Education. So as it relates to the first deliverable, the financial report, this is the primary financial statements of the district. So we did perform the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and in accordance with government auditing standards. And based on the procedures that we've performed, we have issued an unmodified opinion. So that's a clean opinion, essentially providing you the assurance that the district's financial statements are fairly presented. Also included in the financial report, there is a footnote after you pass through the financial statements themselves that talks about the district's bond compliance. So as part of our procedures that we perform, we also select transactions specific to the bond program to make sure that those expenditures are being expended in accordance with the ballot language and what's required. And we found no issues in compliance with that. And then also the other thing to probably highlight in the financial statements is in the opinion letter. There is what we refer to as an emphasis of matter paragraph, and it is related to the implementation of GASB 84, which is the fiduciary activity standard. We talked about this a little bit last year as well. This year, the district implemented the standard, which essentially took student activity funds that were previously in what's called a fiduciary fund and brought it into the governmental funds umbrella. So now you have a special revenue fund that houses the student activities groups, whereas before you had custody of those funds and oversight, and now it's a little bit more formalized, being tucked under the umbrella of the district itself. So as it relates to the second item I mentioned, the federal programs audit, this is the audit of the federal grants that the district receives. It's a compliance-based audit, and annually we select programs based on risk, and we might select usually 1 or 2 programs. This year we selected the Child Nutrition Cluster Program, and we audited that without any issues. So we have issued an unmodified opinion on that, and we have identified no findings or question costs. So clean opinions and results across the board, and congratulations for that. The final deliverable that I wanted to mention is the letter entitled Report to the Board of Education. So this letter is really comprised of 2 parts. The first part are required post-audit communications that we have to communicate to you in terms of what the results of the audit were. I essentially just summarized them for you in my intro. But then there's an informational section as well that we thought was important for you to take a review through. It really covers a lot with regards to the status of state and federal funding. And I'll cover a couple of items here, but there's just some good background information on the different programs that you've been hearing about. So you've had to deal with a lot with this pandemic, and from a financial perspective, there's also been some interesting things that have taken place, both good and maybe not so good. On the positive side, districts have benefited from the couple of federal programs or relief programs that came out. The first was the Families First Act, and then the second is what's commonly referred to as the CARES Act. So through these programs, there are a number of different federal funding sources that districts are able to participate in, and this will largely impact you in fiscal 21. And you were already talking about some of that when you're approving the bills. But in the current year, so the June 30, 2020 audit, The district did receive about $314,000 from the unanticipated school closure grant. This provided the ability for you to essentially feed the community without having to worry about eligibility. People could come here, come to the sites, get food during the peak of the pandemic. And so that this federal funding really aided in your ability to be able to deploy that. But then coming next year, there are two really heavy hitter grants, if you will. One is the coronavirus relief funds. So you actually already have that cash in hand that came through in your August state aid report, but it is fiscal 21 funds. And it sounds like you've been evaluating how those funds will be spent in accordance with the federal guidelines that they are still developing. So you'll receive about, or have received about $1.2 million of funding there. And then you'll also be eligible for what's referred to as the ESSER grant. So that one's not quite as significant, but still about $330,000 of funding, again, for expenditures to be incurred and evaluated right now. Those can date back actually to March if you needed to go back to expenditures from that period. What's interesting about these grants is that a lot is still being determined in terms of how you can spend them, what strings will be attached. They are federal funds, so we just want to make sure you're aware that these will be subjected to the single audit, just like your other federal grants will be. And so just encourage the district to stay connected to what those rules are when you're contemplating how you're going to spend those funds. The other thing that I mentioned that's on the not so positive side was during fiscal 20, districts in the state of Michigan were subjected to a $175 per pupil proration. So that had about a $568,000 impact on the state revenue that you received for fiscal 20. That was identified essentially in July, so after your year effectively ended. And did have a pretty significant impact on districts for the year. The good news is the budget that's been adopted for fiscal 21 kind of restores your foundation allowance, if you will, so you won't have that $175 per pupil cut continue, but you also really don't get an increase in foundation allowance, which you've experienced in the past years. You'll get about $65 per pupil of what's essentially like a one-time funding, but your base foundation allowance is not increasing, but it's also not getting cut. So we're at about an even mark year over year. So that kind of highlights some of the key things that are in the letter. And then now we can flip over to the graphs. I think Camille's going to run them for us, and you should have a copy as well in front of you. So the graph presentation that we have is really primarily focused on the general fund. So the first graph focuses on general fund revenue, and this is the primary operating fund for the district, with about $34.9 million of revenue received this year. By far, the largest component of your revenue source is from the state at 81%, or about $28.4 million. And then other critical sources include property taxes, which is in the local section at about 9%. And your federal funding received in the general fund was about $1.4 million, or 4%. Year over year, revenue sources look very comparable to last year, even with that reduction of state aid at the last minute, didn't overall change the picture. You're still very dependent on your state revenue. The next graph is a comparative graph showing you the current year of 2020, that's on the far right-hand side, and then the previous 2 years, just for comparison purposes. And this isn't total revenue, this is really those three primary revenue sources. So state, local, and federal funding. What's important here is that we've highlighted kind of in the gold bar with the bluish bar on top, that's the state funding that you receive. But the reason we've highlighted that blue section is because you continue to receive what's referred to as the MIPSR stabilization funding, 147C. And that money essentially is received, but then immediately remitted back to the state. And so it's really not resources you have control over how to spend. And it is provided for via a categorical, which could be removed when they go through and make adjustments to state funding. So it's just kind of earmarked to know that that might not be a guaranteed source of revenue in the future, but has been the case for the past several years. On a per pupil basis, we've shown you what these revenue sources are, and that's what's presented at the bottom of the slide. So for 2020, the state, local, and federal revenue, net of that MIPSR's pass-through funding that I mentioned, was about $9,399 per pupil. Now we've got your enrollment count there just for a point of reference. We're now going to switch gears over to the expenditures. So now looking at the general fund expenditures. This is really just a high level picture of functionally where you're spending the dollars within the district. So of your total $35 million of expenditures, about 63% of that was incurred in instruction and instructional support, and about 34% in support services. We have noted parenthetically, so those numbers in parentheses are the prior year numbers, just so that you have that for reference. There was some shifting in the pie this year. There was more expenditures proportionally in instruction and instructional support than support services. And some of that dynamic was impacted by what was observed with the pandemic and different costs and how they ultimately came in. That did shift things a little bit, but ultimately you still paid all of your staff. And so while it's a slight shift, it's not a dramatic change in the expenditure makeup. So the next graph continues to look at that general fund expenditures by function, but really drills down so that we can see, first it was high level we looked at, now we can really see the different categories within the general fund in terms of where the expenditures are. So as I mentioned, the biggest change was really in the instruction and instructional support area. And here you can see within that, the big green section, instruction at 58%. It's about a percentage point above what it was last year. And some of the other categories you'll see has some slight changes, but it was really in that support services then that proportionally again was reduced year over year. Now we'll take a look at really just the split between instruction and support services on this next graph. So the top section is showing you what instruction and the percentage of expenditures that is versus support services, which is in the blue section. So, and gives you the perspective of the last 5 years, if you will. So over time, the percentage of instruction related costs has been increasing, and now it's at 58% compared to 34% now in the current year for support services. Slide number 6 is still looking at general fund expenditures, but now we're looking at it by object. So instead of talking about where in the district are the expenditures, it's really what were you purchasing with your expenditures, if it's a service or a commodity of sorts. We've got this information presented for 2020 and the past 2 years. So this really shows you that from an overall perspective, the largest component of your expenditures is salaries and benefits. So salaries was about $18 million and employee benefits about $11.6 million. Over time, the salaries number has been increasing, but more significantly, that employee benefits number continues to creep up. That's largely impacted by the ongoing costs of funding retirement is the primary driver there. And all the other categories are pretty comparable year over year. I guess before I move on from that slide, I will mention from a supplies perspective, while there was some change year over year to what you incurred, it may be overall a little bit less. The district did purchase PPE equipment and other things related to the pandemic out of the general fund. And so that's why you don't see a dramatic hit to where you might have thought, like, well, why isn't supplies less if we essentially weren't buying things in the buildings? And that's really why, is that you essentially replace those costs with other costs to gear up for going to school right now. The next graph continues to look at that general fund expenditures by object, but really just in a pie format and looking at the current year with those percentages of the total. So you can see what percentage are we spending on these areas. So of your total picture, about 51.4% is salaries, which is just about the exact same as last year, again, proportionally. And employee benefits is about 33.2%. So that one is the area where there was the increase year over year. On a combined basis, salaries, retirement, and fringe benefits do account for about 84.6% of your total expenditures. The next slide here is looking at the general fund expenditures by object still, but on a per pupil basis. So we've got those same categories we were looking at: salaries, employee benefits, purchase services, but showing you what it is to fund it per pupil. So the top bar is salaries. That costs about $5,570 per pupil, followed by employee benefits at about $3,595. So overall, the per pupil cost of all your expenditures in total was about $10,829. And of that, $9,165 per pupil goes towards salaries and benefits. And then if you remember back at the very beginning, I talked about how your total revenue per pupil, net of that MIPSERS pass-through, so your kind of primary funding sources, it was about $9,400 per pupil. So if you take that revenue compared to what we're talking about here, you can, on a per pupil basis, kind of understand the different cost scenarios. So moving on to page 9, this now looks at the general fund balance. So we covered revenues, expenditures on their own, and now we can look at what the net results were to the district and looking at it over the 5-year horizon period. So in 2020, the district's fund balance did decrease slightly to about $8,884,000. And what we've shown here are the different components of fund balance. There are pieces of your fund balance that are essentially already spoken for. So the very top bar is the amount that is considered unassigned, and in the current year, that's about $2.4 million. The remainder of that fund balance, so call it $6.2 million, is really already spoken for. And the largest piece of it was related to the adoption of your fiscal 21 budget that projected a pretty substantial decrease in fund balance, because at the time you thought you were going to have a pretty substantial cut from the state. That's what was being speculated at the time. It was potentially going to be $600 or $700 per pupil, and that was the information that you budgeted on. We now know that that is not going to be the case, thankfully. But just so you're aware, the fund balance right now in this picture is kind of assuming what if we did have to dip into our fund balance at that level.
So that's why the assigned graph grew in 2020, right? The blue section, so we compare it year over year, 2019, you can kind of see that gap.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So moving on to the next graph, here we take a different step away from the actual revenue and expenditure numbers, but look at student enrollment, which plays a key factor, particularly in the amount of revenue that you receive, since that is per pupil based. So over since 2011-12, taking a look at where your enrollment has been. So it had been declining earlier on in the graph. You've had some recent years where enrollment has been creeping up, and then we just kind of stop projecting what this year is going to be with this big question mark, because of not knowing really how many kids you're going to be able to get back into the schools and what the true impact in enrollment has been related to the pandemic. It's really tough to estimate. On top of which, the state has put through this idea of called super blending for how to arrive at what your enrollment count will be. So So it's not as straightforward as what it was in the past because they're trying to take into account that things just look different this year. So, I don't want to say it's anybody's guess. That seems a little bit too vague, but it is pretty tough to estimate right now what your enrollment's going to be. And then we'll wrap up the graphs with kind of a historical look at what the foundation has looked like. So again, when you're being funded on a per pupil basis, the other component of that formula is what your per pupil funding dollars are. So this just kind of gives you that snapshot of what it has looked like over the past years. You know, since early on in the graph, before there was the significant cuts that were experienced during the Great Recession, you know, you've really benefited with the slow kind of creep up of your foundation allowance since that time. And we know that it's been tough and it hasn't necessarily covered the escalation in costs, but you have enjoyed some of those foundation allowance upticks. What we show here though is that in 2019-20, you were supposed to receive $8,259 per pupil. Ultimately, you received $8,084 per pupil. So going forward, you'll go back up to that $8,259 for this year, but you won't recoup that amount that was essentially lost in that proration. So it's something to just keep an eye on as that that state funding and the state budget continues to kind of be impacted. I think the early results, we were all pleased that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but obviously the pandemic is continuing and just have to be aware that that could continue to impact schools as well. I want to thank Neil and thank Linda and the staff. Again, they were very helpful to us as always. We miss not being able to be here in person. I'm glad to be here tonight, and we definitely appreciate the opportunity to work with you and present to you. So happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Anybody? Just a quick comment, Jerry. So the Finance Committee sat on a much more extensive review of these documents a few weeks back with the team from Plant Moran and Neil's team, Stacy and myself. And so just let the general public know, it was hours of review, pages of review. So we do take the time to really study this, and that's our responsibility as a Finance Committee and mine as the treasurer to ensure we're doing that, right? That's our due diligence requirement. So I just want to make sure, you know, we communicate that to our population, that's what does occur, and we come into this meeting and kind of present it to a broader board and the broader public. So just want to bring it up. But thank you for your time. Neil's team and Linda was instrumental this year, so we got to give Linda kudos next time he's here because Neil was preoccupied with other things. So Linda stepped up really big for the team, and that's great, right? That's a testament to the staff that we have there in that office. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Holly.
Congratulations on being back in the building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Of course, as always, thank you and your staff. Paul, thank you and your committee members for spending those hours and reporting back to the board. So it's a very point well made for during a public session that is the process. I appreciate you making. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, motion to accept the Plant Moran audit results as presented.
Walsh supports.
Motion by Zanetti, support by Schulte. Mr. Zanetti.
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Schulte, yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Walsh, yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Mr. Hiller.
Hiller, yes.
Green, yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I would just like to thank Plant Moran as well, because it was a different audit for all of us, clearly. I mean, so it was a lot of extra work on both sides, and their flexibility and working with us and helping us get this done in a remote environment, which is obviously something different than we've ever done before. It was nice having the team that we've always had on their side, so that we know each other, we know how to communicate, we know what each other's expecting, which made it a lot easier when we couldn't actually be together and do this. And then, like Paul said, Linda Reno in my office and the entire business office really stepped up this year as we were preoccupied doing a lot of different things. And I got to the point where I felt like I was just coming in at night and saying, where are we? What do we need to do? And but that's good. I mean, they had it ready. They had it ready to go. I could review documents at night and we could keep things moving in a remote environment. So it was a good team effort given the circumstances for sure this year. Thanks.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Our next item is a contract of construction management for Mr. Caswell.
Yes, tonight we are recommending the contract for our construction management services company for the 2020 bond. We've started our relationship with our construction company back with the 2017 bond. They were an integral part of developing the entire 2020 bond application and helping us work through the needs assessment. They were part of the team that went to Lansing with us and got approval for bond. And they have been working with us nonstop, quite frankly, and helping to put together the estimates for the budget, reviewing the drawings that have been coming through from the architect. So their staff's experience, their familiarity with our district at this point, having just been through every building with the 2017 bond issue, definitely gives us some comfort in recommending to the board that we proceed with them for the 2020 bond issue as our construction management firm moving forward.
Motion to accept the Clark Construction Company as our construction management service for the district.
Both supports.
Motion by Fitzpatrick, supported by Walsh. Any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Green, Mr. Zanetti. The contract extends through the entire period of the bond process, right? So if it takes us 5 years, they're on board for the 5 years. If it takes us more and less, it just moves back and forth.
Yep,
Okay.
this is a contract for both series of the bond work. So they'll take care of the work that we're planning on doing next summer, as well as the work that we'll be doing the summer of 2025 and the work of summer of 2026. So this contract entails all of that work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question, Neil.
Mr. Hiller?
Yes, sorry. There was clearly a lot of changes in the contract, but was any of the issues that we had with the change orders kind of addressed in this last year? What some of the change orders that?
The updated language need to be in there has been updated in here to protect us. Both in the, you have in the first part of this giant stack of a contract is the actual contract with the CM. And then in the back, included in the it's called the A232 document, is an example of the contracts that will be given to our contractors as we award them. And any protections and language that needs to be updated in there has been updated as well. So all those lines out and changes, 99% of them all came from our construction bond attorney who's gone through and helped us negotiate the terms of this new contract with Clark.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Walsh, yes.
Schulte?
Schulte, yes.
Mr. Zanetti?
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Hiller?
Hiller, yes.
Green, yes. The motion carries. Next item is first reading on policy 2266 Title 9 011 definitions on voting. Ms. Fenwick.
Yes, the first policy that you have in your packet is for the Title IX policy. As you know, Title IX was rewritten, the majority of which falls on universities, but it also trickles down to the K-12 environment as well. In addition to adopting this extensive policy, we had to train our administrative teams and then give an awareness training to all of our staff members. So we have partnered with Troon to do that. They have sent us a video that we can share with staff members. But in addition, all of the administrators who may be doing some of these investigations have been trained more thoroughly in regard to the practices that they need to follow. So this explains exactly what we have to do, what we will do for those investigations. It also includes things that we can post on our website. Troon is very comprehensive when they send us these things, so that it'll have a variety of forms for people to fill out, you know, if they have a complaint and things like that, and then the process that it goes through in order to get resolved or into an investigation. So that's the first one with the Title IX. The next one that you have refers to voting. It's 0167.1. And we recently adopted this. I think we brought it back in, it was brought to us in September of 2018. I don't think at that time that we anticipated that we would have a lot of virtual board meetings. I don't think anyone was really thinking about that at the time. And there was an option for us at that time. You'll see that you could conduct voting by voice, show of hands, or roll call. So that would allow someone virtually to come in and vote like Ms. Walsh is doing it. Now, we've been covered by executive order, obviously, throughout the pandemic, but obviously the executive orders have recently been revoked. So they're suggesting that you have that in your policy, that if you have someone that is joining virtually, that they be allowed to vote, and that's why we do the roll call votes. So this just gives us that opportunity to, if we have a board member who needs to participate, for any reason out of town for business, as long as you have a quorum physically present, so 4 members physically present and 1 person or 2 people virtually, then that would be acceptable.
Those are both first readings.
First readings,
So
yes.
no action needed on those. Next item is personnel items, leaves, and stuff.
Yes, you have in your packet the request for 2 leaves, 1 for a family medical leave and 1 for an expanded leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act, the EFMLA.
Motion to approve the leaves.
Support by Hiller.
Motion by Schulte, support by Hiller. Mr. Schulte,
Schulte, yes.
Mr. Hiller,
Hiller, yes.
Ms. Walsh,
Walsh, yes.
Mrs. Zanetti,
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Green, yes, the motion carries. Next item is new hires. There are 3. Ms. Denny.
Yes, you have in your packet the request to approve 1 Larissa Gamble, a music teacher for Westwood and Warrenwoods Middle School, Isaac Johnson, an art teacher at Briarwood and Pinewood, and Benson Pash, an afternoon custodian at Warrenwoods Tower.
Fitzpatrick, motion to accept the new hires as presented. Support.
Motion by Fitzpatrick, support by Schulte. Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Schulte, yes.
Ms. Walsh,
Walsh, yes.
Mrs. Zanetti,
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Hiller,
Hiller, yes.
Green, yes, the motion carries. Next item is public expression. Ms. Denny.
Yes, as we have been running the public expression virtually, I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being streamed live to YouTube, and that live stream causes a 15 to 20 second delay. So if you would like to speak to the board during this public expression portion, please call the number now that you have on the agenda and listen to the meeting from your phone. If you listen to the computer and the phone at the same time, it gives a little bit of feedback. So we're trying to prevent that from happening. So the number that you would dial is 646-558-656. The meeting ID is 818-2802-2020. And the passcode is 492681. Once you are admitted into the meeting, you will be muted, and we will call on you based on the last 4 digits of your phone number. So we will get started. I think we have a couple callers in here. So we'll start with caller 7775. Can you unmute, please?
Hi, this is Erin Kilgline.
Hi, Erin.
I am a proud staff member at Briarwood. This is my 19th year. I was one of several staff members redeployed in September. Well, I was reassigned several times in August and September, and now I'm teaching a kindergarten first grade split class with 18 students. I have 10 kindergartners and 8 first graders. Last year, the K-1 split was considered at Briarwood, and that teacher was promised the class would be capped at 16 students due to the unique nature and additional workload involved with teaching 2 separate curriculums. And that was pre-pandemic. Several split classes have been created throughout the district with the intention of solving the problem with these large class sizes, but unfortunately it did no such thing. 18 5- and 6-year-old students together in a classroom is simply too many given our current reality. I know several elementary classrooms currently have 18 or more students, including our other kindergarten and first grade classrooms at Briarwood. And I feel that our numbers certainly warrant 2 sections of face-to-face kindergarten and first grade classes. Like everyone, I'm concerned for the health and safety of my students. It's simply not possible to maintain 6 feet from one another. As you know, our youngest learners have very unique and specific extra kind of needs. I'm constantly comforting, consoling, tying shoes, zipping coats, even buttoning pants. And so much of my classroom instruction and assessment is delivered one-on-one and in small groups. None of this can be done from 6 feet away. We certainly do our best to keep our masks on correctly and work behind our dividers. We're constantly wiping tables and washing hands, but my fear is that we're doing a lot of this in vain when there are just too many of us together in our room. And these concerns really don't even address that additional challenge of trying to teach 2 curriculums during the school day. I'm also concerned about decisions that are being made about quarantining after positive cases. I really implore you to quarantine entire classrooms, as social distancing is simply not possible in our elementary rooms. I'm super proud of what the teachers have done to get ready for our face-to-face students. I think we've just done an amazing job of creatively solving problems with classroom layout and reinforcing dividers, creating countless individual supply and material baskets for the kids. We're just asking that you please don't ask us to do this all over again in January with little to no notice. We know that more students want to return in person at the end of the semester. So let's plan now for the furniture, supplies, PPE, and the additional staff that will be necessary for that to happen safely. I realize that COVID cases are inevitable, but I feel strongly that we can be doing more to keep our students and staff safe. Please consider hiring additional staff to lower these class sizes and eliminate the split classes. Please consider quarantining entire classrooms when positive cases emerge. And let's please work together to start planning for January now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have caller 8668.
Hello?
Hello. Can you state your name for the board, please?
Yes, my name is Abby Sigler. I am a parent of a 9th grader and a 7th grader. I'm talking to you because I have a few concerns about how things are handled at your level recently. I've discussed with other parents about the issues I am going to address today, and I know that I'm not alone in my thoughts. There seems to be a major lack of transparency when it comes to informing our community on many issues. Before I get started with my concerns, I would like to know why we have not gotten any answers to questions that have been asked during the public expression part of these meetings. You have no problem responding to people when they call in with a positive note, but have yet to answer questions from parents going back to at least August. I understand you don't want the meetings to last hours, but people want answers and are willing to listen into these meetings until they get them. My first concern is about COVID reporting. My kids attend WWMS and Tower. There have now been 3 reported cases from Pinewood, 1 from WWMS and 1 from Tower. Is there a reason why the letters that are being sent to parents of those schools are not being sent to the entire district? While my kids no longer attend Pinewood, we live in the Pinewood district, and my kids do go outside and sometimes hang out with or babysit the kids in the neighborhood. It would be nice to be informed when there are positive cases and which grade level they are in, so I know whether or not my kids can be outside with the other kids. As of right now, I've had to tell them that they are not allowed to play with the neighborhood kids because I don't know if they have been in a class where there was a COVID exposure. It's not fair to my kids or the neighbor kids. I understand there are privacy laws, but I sub in the district and have taken the FERPA training, and I know that grade level can be disclosed without giving personally identifying information. I feel like we are given more information when there is a lice case in a classroom. When there is a COVID case in a classroom, why isn't the entire class sent home to quarantine? I understand you're following health department guidelines, but there's following minimum guidelines and there is doing what is best and in the best interest of the class and the school. If the teacher is being sent home to quarantine, why not send the entire class home to learn virtually together and be safe instead of putting another staff member or sub at risk of contracting COVID if not all exposed students were sent to quarantine? How do you determine which people are supposed to quarantine? I've been in Pinewood. Those classrooms are not large. I'm sure there are at least 20 to 25 students, if not more, in each class still. Social distancing is next to impossible. If an infected person coughs or sneezes, that lingers in the air for quite a while. It more than likely would spread throughout the entire class. I know there are not windows that can be opened, and I'm sure the ventilation system has not been updated to handle this pandemic. I'm not asking you to send the entire school home. I know that's not an option at this point. But think about how you would feel if your child was in the classroom with a case, but was told that they were fine to return to school the next day. Wouldn't you feel like your child was exposed just from being in that classroom? How do you expect parents of virtual kids to feel about possibly sending their kids back in January if they don't think you're handling this pandemic safely? Now that teachers are back in classrooms with students and there have been 5 reported cases, have any of you been into the buildings to check on the staff? Have you asked if they are okay with how things are going? Have you asked if they feel supported by their building administrators? Have you asked if they feel supported by you? Have you asked if they feel safe at work? Our teachers are people too, and they have been in a way more stressful environment than ever. They are at risk of catching COVID too. It's not really their choice to be there. Not all of them have the option to take a leave of absence if they don't feel safe. Some of them have to work in order to pay bills and support their families. They need to know that they are not alone in this new way of teaching. I know there are parents that have their backs, but do you? Now let's set aside the topic of COVID and talk more about the issue of transparency. It seems very difficult to find any information about these board meetings. The only way we find out about meetings that are held on dates other than the regular second Monday like today seems to be by accident. Why are they not announced somewhere like through Remind or on social media? Teachers and principals use these means of communication all the time. Why wouldn't the meetings be announced that way too? Many parents feel like Ms. Dunawith-Fici and the board may be trying to hide things from the community. That may not be the case, but that is how it is coming across. Also, why are the minutes from these meetings not posted on the website? Not everyone can attend the meetings or are able to watch a replay. Disclosing the meeting minutes would help people to see that things aren't being hidden. This would include minutes from closed-door meetings as well. Parents would also like to see on the website information about the board members. Many of us know nothing about you. It would be nice to have some sort of short biographical information. I did notice that there's now an email address for the board, warrenwoodsboard@mywps.org. Thank you for adding that. But do emails from this address go to everyone on the board? Can you please tell me right now, individually, if you are reading emails from this address?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. Thank you. In conclusion, I am asking for more transparency from Ms. Dunawith-Fici and the entire school board in regards to board meetings and COVID issues. I am asking for acknowledgement of or questions to be answered during or after public expression. I am asking for COVID case letters to be sent to everyone in the district and for those letters to disclose school and grade level of each case. I'm asking for you to consider quarantining the entire class when there is a case and having them learn virtually together during that 2 weeks. And lastly, I am asking each of you to physically check in with all of our teachers in all of our buildings to be sure they feel supported. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is caller 7837.
Board meetings are the second Tuesday, fourth Tuesday of every month.
Hello.
Hello, can you state your name for the board, please?
Hi, this is Marie DeLeo. I just wanted to call in today for a few things. First of all, I just wanted to say that virtual learning is going really well for my 2 kids. I have one at Briarwood and one at the middle school, and the teachers cannot be more wonderful, patient, helpful, and accommodating. I know soon we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not to return to face-to-face, and I just have a few questions and concerns that'll help me make my mind up. As expected, there's been COVID cases in our district. I know staff and students are required to take temperatures at home. Basically, we're relying on the honor system, but we hired security guards for the middle school. Why can't they take temperatures, or other personnel be hired to take temperatures before staff and students enter the building? How are you determining who was in contact with staff or students for more than 15 minutes? A staff member can voice who they were around, but a student may not be able to, depending on their age. If a teacher contracts COVID, why is the entire class not being quarantined? On the health department's responding to cases of COVID-19 among teachers, students, and staff, it says that for elementary schools and other settings where a stable classroom cohort has been maintained, the close contacts may be all students and staff in the classroom. How fast are contacts notified after a positive COVID case if they were around that person? And then as for the middle school, I can't speak on the high school because I don't have a child there, but why are kids changing classes and not the teachers changing classes and the kids staying in one classroom all day? They're carrying their partitions from class to class, disinfecting their own area upon entering each class. It would make more sense for tracing and transmission purposes for them to stay in one spot, or to have students who are leaving the classroom at the end of the class disinfect to have time for disinfection to work before the next class. Also, what are they cleaning with and how long does it take to sanitize, the contact time that it needs to stay on the surface to kill the virus? Also, why isn't a district-wide letter going home regarding cases? I live in the Pinewood area, but I have a Briarwood student and a middle school student, but they play outside with Pinewood students. And I'd like to be aware that there was positive cases. It also says on the Macomb County Health Department's responding to cases of COVID that school administration should notify all staff and student families of any confirmed cases of COVID-19 in a school, maintaining the confidentiality of the cases required by state and federal laws. The Macomb County Health Department will provide a letter that may be used for this notification. I also want to say that I second Mrs. Kilkine's comment to starting to work on a January plan right now. We need to be doing more for our kids than just the bare minimum required. We need to be keeping our staff safe. Our students can't learn without our staff, and our students need to stay safe as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have caller 2047.
Hello.
Hello, could you state your name for the board, please?
Hi, this is Erin Mitchell.
Hey, Erin, go ahead.
I currently teach 6th grade science at the middle school. This is my 7th year in the district, and I've been union rep for the past 3 or 4 years as well. This year has been challenging for all. No one has been unaffected by this virus. I truly believe everyone in Warren Woods is doing their best for the safety and well-being of the students and family of this district. The people I see every day and work with, the teachers especially, have been going above and beyond. We are taking more and more responsibilities every day. The way we teach has been completely changed, and we are having to make changes to the curriculum and to suit the needs of our students in ways we could never have imagined a year ago. Everyone is trying their best, but in my 6 years in the district, I've never seen colleagues so defeated, stressed out, and upset, and I wanted to speak on behalf of them. We feel like we don't have a voice in major decisions that affect our jobs. We were told that this is the date face-to-face kids are coming back without a chance to give any feedback. I was originally supposed to be teaching 4 sections of virtual 6th grade science, and a week before the face-to-face students returned, I found out that I would be instead teaching all of my virtual students in 3 sections instead of 4, a face-to-face 6th grade section, plus a 7th grade virtual section instead of a core enrichment class. The other members of my team were similarly affected, and the ELA and math teachers are both teaching sections of 8th grade math and ELA. Our colleagues are being supportive and helpful, but it is teaching another core class, which is much more demanding than an elective enrichment class that repeats every quarter. To break down the numbers for you, Team 2, which has all the face-to-face classes, has 80 students on their team. If you add in their core enrichment and advisory, they maybe have a maximum of 120 contacts per day. Our team have 105 virtual students plus 21 face-to-face students that we share. That brings us to a total of 126. In my 7th grade science section, I have 35 students, which brings me to 161 individual students that I'm responsible for teaching science to. And in my advisory, which is 25 students, I have 186 contacts with students, very close to our contractual limit of 188. Math and ELA teachers on my team have about 6 less students than me in their 8th grade classes, but around 180 for their contacts, and social studies has 182 contacts with her enrichment class instead of another grade level. That means we have 46 to 51 approximately more individual students that we see and 60 to 66 more contacts than our face-to-face counterparts on Team 1. This is not equitable, and we are not able to effectively teach such a high number of students without there being disparity with their face-to-face peers. Since we have both face-to-face and virtual students, we are also planning for both. These lessons are not the same, and it takes considerable time and effort to plan for teaching the same lesson for both formats of learning, on top of having 60 more grades to fill, 60 more attendance records to maintain, 60 more progress reports and report grades and comments to fill, etc. It was brought to our attention that counseling had come up with a solution to these disparities in early August. Instead of making these changes in August and asking teachers for feedback before school even started, the way I understand it, these ideas were shot down. When it was realized class size would be an issue for the face-to-face kids coming back, the schedule changed 4 weeks into the marking period. A week before progress reports came out, my count in the 6th grade alone of students having schedule changes was 114. This ranged from students that were in my core enrichment class getting a whole new elective and teacher, students keeping me as a science teacher but having me a different hour, and students that had the Team 2 teachers that were changed to having the Team 1 teachers. When these changes happened, the grades and assignments the students had worked so hard on did not transfer in Schoology or Power School. Basically, it was like starting the year from scratch for a lot of students in terms of grades because of the changes. We think this could have been handled in a better way. Students are still confused about their schedules and grades, and we're upset that they lost assignments. I had several parents bring up these changes to me during conferences this previous week. They were understanding, but frustrated. Yes, these changes were made to reduce class size for face-to-face students, which no one will argue wasn't needed. But teachers were not even asked for opinions about it or for solutions, and the students suffered. We wish that it could have been done at the quarter or even a week later after progress reports. One of the proposals the counselors had was for each teacher to have 2 sections of their core subject virtual and 2 in person. Colleagues of mine were told this wasn't possible because of too many changes to the schedule. But look at all the changes that were made for the plan that was chosen, and the workload from teacher to teacher is much less equitable. We have no idea what January at the end of the semester is going to look like at this point. It's hard to look past the day-to-day. We feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of contacts we're making with students every day. We fear that students are not getting the attention they deserve and the differentiation of learning they've come to expect in Warren Woods. No one can predict what's going to happen with the virus and how many students will be virtual, how many will be face-to-face, what our schedules will look like, etc. But we believe changing the schedule so that virtual and face-to-face teachers have a more equal workload, either at the next card marking or semester, will be beneficial not only for us, but especially for the students. It'd be much easier for students to change from face-to-face to virtual, for example, and keep the same teachers, as well as other benefits like being able to give more attention to each individual student, because we'll have less overall. I don't have all the answers, and I can't imagine being an administrator right now. I know it is extremely difficult, and I'm a teacher because I don't want that job. All we're asking for is more communication and be able to work together to find solutions that work best for everyone, and first and foremost, doing what's best for our students. To echo what a few other people have said, let's plan now and not wait until January. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Callers 0901.
There.
Caller 0901, can you unmute, please?
Hello, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that, technical problem. My name is Fred Hubner. I have a student in the Tower High School who is on virtual at-home learning, and was actually quite exceptional, we thought, by comparison to what had happened in the springtime, up until the school started back up with in-person learning. And then the virtual experience for the students that were made at home has dramatically changed. It's still far better than what we experienced in the spring, but it's sadly far lower than our expectations, especially after having the first month be so well organized. And then we think that the reasoning for that is that the teachers were focused on one format, focused on all the students equally, and now having to teach in the classroom and then also be engaged with students online is maybe proving too hard to handle in the course of each individual class an hour. We'd like to see dedicated teachers for virtual students on a 1 hour basis. So if you have enough students for a geometry class for 1 hour, get them in and teach them virtually so that it's all virtual students for that teacher for that hour. I know that creates a whole scheduling nightmare, but this is certainly the type of improvements we'd like to see coming out in order to maintain him in virtual classes with the district. Our goal, obviously, being an in-district household is to maintain our property values by maintaining a good school district by keeping our kids enrolled so that all the money goes to our local school district. However, we can't ignore the fact that we need to have quality education for our child. And the way that the current virtual system is operating after the change was made with in-person classes coming online at the beginning of October, we do not believe that the current quality dictates continuing forward if something doesn't change significantly in the near future. And sadly, we'd be forced into looking into other online options, which then hurts the district. And that's something we want to avoid. In addition, we've been hearing about COVID cases for the in-person students, and obviously students being younger are not as much affected by the virus, but many of the teachers may be in situations where they can't opt out of teaching, may have immunity issues and things of that nature. Just wanted to express our support for creating as much of a safe environment for the teachers and also for the family members at home whose students may be bringing something home to immunocompromised individuals in their home. And just the importance of the district focusing on maintaining as much transparency around infections and how you respond to that in a way that makes the teachers safe and those at home safe, and also the students too, but obviously to a much larger degree, those populations that are affected more by the virus. Thank you for taking this input.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it. Well, I had something, this is Seller. Wanted to share that the Ridgewood Field has been renamed from Racine Park back to Ridgewood Park. They, after they finished construction on Racine there, they put up a new sign. The city put up a new sign, took down the fence to the whole park, the whole field. Now you can access it freely and put a new sign up that says Ridgewood Park. So
Wasn't that exciting?
There's plans for some green space and walking paths and stuff. So.
Okay. Wonderful.
Mr. Greenhouse will have public expression.
Yes, Mr. Zamir.
Just want to read a statement I put together. As a board member for over a decade at Warren Woods Public Schools, I would like to address a concern that I have at this time. For some reason, there is a perceived opinion that board members are not being transparent with the public. This is a direct attack on my character and integrity as a board member, as well as my fellow board members. Let's be clear, no information is being withheld from the public unless by law, or we're not allowed to release it. And if someone knows different, I would please like them to bring it forward to the board president and alert him so he can address it with the board members and the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zamir. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Zanetti makes a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion by Zanetti.
Support.
Support by Mr. Schulte. Mr. Zanetti.
Zanetti, yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Schulte, yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick, yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Walsh, yes.
Mr. Hilder.
Hilarious.
Yes, motion carries.